Okay, so this is the final part to the lecture, part 3, movement analysis. Just to work. Okay, so this movement analysis is something going to seem very foreign to you, and it's going to be hard to kind of grasp. Just hoping you can start to begin to grasp this and start to work your way towards getting better and better at this. There's different levels of sophistication with this. Let's kind of do it around petting the dog. So let's assume Helena is better. She's kind of down the road in the recovery towards the end of the story. She can move her shoulder around pretty well at this point, but it's still kind of weak all over. In particular, she has a hard time in terms of motion and strength reaching across her body with her shoulder. So we know that's horizontal abduction and adduction. And fully extending her elbow. She can't get it all the way straight. It's kind of stiff from being stuck in that sling for so long. And you're thinking, okay, what's good activity? She comes to you in the clinic to work on, and or let's say you go into her home, and you know she loves that dog. Everything just revolves around that dog. Has a lot of meaning to her. So you want to incorporate that into an activity versus just sitting there doing exercises with her. So how can we do pet grooming for an activity? And you can very easily to improve her shoulder range of motion and her strength. So again, we're thinking we want to work on elbow extension and shoulder horizontal ab and adduction. How are you going to position her dog when you're doing the activity? On the ground, on the table, on the couch? And where is Helena's position going to be in relationship to the dog? Above the dog, below the dog, same height, sitting, standing. Think about this. Good place to start. Kind of you think about it, we want that horizontal plane. So let's say you put Pablo on the couch and Helena's sitting in front of the dog, so her shoulder height is pretty parallel to the dog, not above the dog or below the dog, but probably parallel to the dog would be a good place to start. And we want the dog far enough away so she has to kind of range her shoulder out. She has to extend her elbow. So she's doing kind of this sweeping motion where she extends her elbow, comes across in that horizontal plane, flexes it, and extends it. So she's kind of flexing and extending her elbow as she's petting the dog, and she's horizontal abduction and horizontal adduction in that plane with her shoulder. That's kind of the motion we're thinking of doing to start out with, see how she does with that. You really have to think about what joints am I working? What muscles am I working? Are these the ones that correspond to my val? I do my val. She's impaired with certain muscles. She's impaired with certain joint motions. These are the ones I want to incorporate in the activity so she can improve, obviously, in these particular kind of drilled down areas that we think are her problem. So let's think of the motions and the muscles involved with the activity we just talked about. So if you kind of do this to yourself and you palpate your scapula. So I'm palpating my scapula down by my elbow, underneath my armpit, as I do that horizontal plane motion where I'm coming across my body and back, flexing my elbow, extending my elbow, visualizing petting the dog. As I feel it and think about it, my scapula comes up a little bit. It elevates and it depresses. It elevates and depresses, and it kind of abducts and adducts. It kind of protracts and retracts. It's really getting all four of those planes in there. So what is the scapula doing? As it elevates, levator scap, upper trapezius are kicking in. As it depresses, the lower trapezius and serratus anterior involved. And as it rolls out to the side, abducts, serratus inferior involved. So we were doing this activity and you had to break it down. Those are the muscles you would think about that are involved with those four planes of the scapula. My shoulder, horizontal abduction, horizontal AD, adduction towards the chest, horizontal abduction away from the body. You should have these muscles that be starting to click in your brain when you hear that those two different motions. Horizontal adduction, big prime movers are the anterior deltoid and the pec major. Horizontal abduction, or posterior deltoid. So it's anterior, posterior deltoid, and the pec. We're kind of working that shoulder motion. And then the elbow is easy. As we're flexing and extending our elbow, it's the biceps and the triceps that we're working. So really you have a good sense of what the motions are, what's the anatomy involved. How can you make the activity more challenging in terms of required motion, strength, and weakness? This is what we call grading the activity. We're going to start out making it easy for Helena. She masters that, and you make it harder, harder, harder. How can you make it harder? Adjust the height. We know gravity plane makes a big difference. So if she's coming straight across, it's fairly challenging, not that hard. And if we make Helena lower the dog higher, so she's going more against gravity, it's going to challenge her strength, work her strength more. How can we increase the range of motion? You could make the dog further away, closer. Endurance, increase the reps, increase the amount of time she's doing it. You could also add like a weight cuff to her arm. She could try different things. Brushing, resistance in the brushing may make a difference. Other activities, you could kind of work on some of the things. Bathing the dog, cooking for the dog, just things around the dog, or other activities that she likes to do. All getting in these shoulder motions and elbow motions that we're trying to target with our activity. Hopefully that's starting to make sense to you. We'll do more of that, kind of work your way into it. Okay, so these are the lecture questions. What are 2 reasons why OTs care about improving range of motion? Range of motion connects with function. OTs are all about function, need that motion, range of motion to do what you need functionally. Prevents deformity, so preventing deformity and facilitating function. 5 potential causes of limited range of motion. There's a bunch of them. Top of my head, trauma, neurological involvement. Talked about spasticity. You just need to list these. Arthritis, different kinds of arthritis, joint fusions. Contraindications, inflammation, trauma, inflamed arthritis would be another one. Kind of drawing a blank here. See what else we got. Contraindications, hemophilia, hematoma, osteoporosis. Spinning around, hopefully I'm not making it dizzy. When performing range of motion on one joint, what should you do to the other joint if possible? You should need to compare it to their unaffected joint. So let's say they've had a shoulder injury and you're measuring the motion of the injured shoulder. Always measure the motion of the non-injured shoulder, the normal shoulder. Get a sense of what is normal for them. So, for example, the non-injured shoulder, the good shoulder, they have 180 degrees of shoulder flexion. The injured shoulder, they just have 60 degrees. When you're writing your goals for therapy, after so many weeks, your goal is for them to have 180 degrees of shoulder in their right shoulder as well. So they're getting back to what was normal for them. What is a good functional activity to increase tricep strength? Triceps, elbow extension. Pushing up from a chair. Chair sit-ups. A lot of therapists do these constantly, chair sit-ups. So you're going from sitting to standing in a chair and really emphasize that with your arm, with your shoulders, going from flexed shoulders to extended shoulders. So sit to stand or chair sit-ups. Great activity to building up the triceps. What is remedial therapy intervention to address limited shoulder range of motion? Stretching is a great one. Compensatory therapy intervention to address limited range of motion. Heat, usually you can heat a shoulder up, a joint up, and then you can stretch it. Okay, what's coming up? Homework 2. Hopefully you've already got that done. You should have had that done before you tackled this. PowerPoint quiz, 921 quiz. A lecture question, probably just one from this week's lecture questions. Knowing the motions and the anatomy of the shoulder, elbow, and scapula. Which muscles go to the list on Canvas? Student-led, I believe the student-led for this week is just the motion, shoulder, elbow, scapula. Again, the definitive list is on Canvas. Okay, so again, email with questions. And I'll talk to you guys later.